Hey guys, I'm Kyle from Raw Canine Experiment. Today, I just want to go over my raw feeding journey with you all. So back in December of 2021, I got my first dog, Noble, who was a chocolate Labrador Retriever. At the time, I knew nothing about dogs. I just knew that I wanted one like most other people. And I didn't know what they ate. I didn't know what I needed to get her before she showed up, other than maybe the best kibble my money could afford, a harness, a couple toys, and I knew I had to bring her to the vet for her shots. Honestly, I thought the puppy phase was going to be smooth sailing. I was like, I'll just get her some training classes and some good kibble. This will be easy money. That ended up completely not being the case at all. When I went and got Noble, she was living in a barn with her litter mates and she was eating out of a giant stale bucket of kibble, which at the time I knew, like, even this is kind of weird. Whatever. I bought her anyway because I'd already put a deposit down and I knew I drove 4 hours to get her that day. I was like, I'm just going to take her home. This will be fine. Boy, was I completely wrong. So when I brought Noble home, she survived a 4-hour car ride, and then getting out of the car, she immediately had diarrhea in the backyard. And I was like, all right, well, new environment. I'm new to her. It was a stressful car ride. I'm sure this will clear up in about a day or two. Unfortunately for myself and Noble, that was not the case. She had repeated bouts of severe stomach upset where she just had liquid poop pretty much 24/7. It was just like a swamp out there all the time. I kind of just figured, again, out of my ignorance, that this was a puppy thing and that surely it couldn't have been tied to this expensive kibble that she was eating. She would also regurgitate her food often. She would have bouts of vomiting up bile. And then she was also super itchy all the time, like incessantly itchy. It was ridiculous. I actually remember a 1-week stretch specifically where for a couple days in a row, Noble was up like all throughout the night, every 1 or 2 hours, just like a fire hydrant out the back end. It was completely ridiculous. I wasn't getting any sleep. She wasn't getting any sleep. It was clear that she was getting dehydrated. So at least having some intelligence about me, I decided to bring her to the veterinarian. At this point, as you could probably imagine, this is where my story begins to take a turn. Like many other people who have started their raw feeding journeys, it is usually a bad experience with a veterinarian or with a food company that kind of puts them on pace for that. So I had gone to the vet, and I want to make it clear that this is not a dig at my veterinarian at the time, right? I love my veterinarians. I had known them growing up through my childhood dogs. Unfortunately, they just didn't have the answers that I needed, and they were just doing as they were taught, which was, hey, diagnose and take care of the symptom and don't really worry about the underlying cause. We can treat the symptom, and if the underlying cause goes away after that, great. If not, all right, at least we treated the symptoms. We turned off the smoke alarms. The fire is still raging on the inside, though. So when I went to my veterinarian, they had told me that the itchiness that Noble had was just related to general allergies, which, that's not really a diagnosis. That's just saying, hey, your dog is having a problem with something in their environment, whether it's their food or actually environmental. We just don't know what it is. And then the stomach upset was also related to the allergies, or so they supposed. Now, on the way out the door with that half diagnosis, they gave me some prescription food, of which I'm sure you could imagine the company, and they also gave me a 40 Flora packet that was allegedly supposed to ease her stomach upset. But being naive at the time and not really knowing too much about dogs and their nutritional needs, I went, okay, sure, why not? I will feed my dog this canned wet food that you are prescribing me, and I will see what the outcome is. I brought Noble home, and she obviously did not want to eat the wet food. I guess she knew that it didn't taste good or that it wasn't good for her. And it seemed like over the next couple of days, she wasn't really getting better. I had to force her to eat it. It just wasn't good. Now, as I said, Noble's symptoms were not getting better. She was still just having liquid stool. She was very itchy all the time. Couldn't figure out what was going on. I was about to pull my hair out of my head until my wonderful grandmother had informed me, hey, why don't you just make your dog some real food like chicken and put it in a bowl for her and see what happens. See if that eases her stomach upset, because, that's what my grandmother and my grandfather had always done when their dog got sick. They just made chicken and rice and threw it in a bowl. Fortunately, I didn't feed Noble chicken and rice, but what I did feed Noble was scrambled eggs, sweet potatoes, and chicken breast. I actually have the video, and I'll put it up somewhere over here, of Noble eating that bowl for the first time. I don't know why I recorded it back then. I didn't know I'd be in this position now doing this video, but I just happened to record it, so there it is for you. Now, when we talk about miracles, right, this food was an absolute godsend for Noble. Obviously, fresh food, as we know it, is better than any sort of processed food, right? And Noble's stomach issues were resolved almost immediately. The itchiness was not, but her bouts of extremely loose stool and fire hydrant butt were absolutely cured. A dog trainer that I had had at the time recommended that since Noble had done so well in the fresh food, I should actually probably consider putting her on a raw diet. Like everybody else, I knew absolutely nothing about a raw diet at the time. I didn't know that there were different feeding models or that there were different nutrients that needed to be balanced. I went ahead with a recommendation anyway, and she had actually pointed me towards a raw feeding store in New York where I was living at the time. I went there and I spoke to some of the employees, and they had actually, believe it or not, recommended that I feed my dog a bag of Bones & Co. And this was a couple of years ago at this time now, but allegedly people's dogs are doing pretty well on a high-fat, moderate protein diet. So I was like, all right, why not? I'll give it a shot. So I had gone and picked up my first few bags of raw food, and lo and behold, Noble's stomach issues had gone away. The vomiting had gone away. She seemed like she was more alive. She was more playful. She was better behaved. there were all of these symptoms that had been relieved and so many benefits that had come from feeding her fresh food that I had immediately become a raw feeding radical. At this point, there was absolutely no going back for me. I never went back to that veterinarian about Noble's issues. After that, I had literally just gone online and decided that I was going to learn everything I could about how to feed my dog fresh food, how to make my dog's own meals, what commercial raw food was going to be the best for my dog, all of that stuff. I had become an absolute madman after seeing that change. Feeding Noble a raw diet didn't immediately cure all of her issues. That's not what I'm saying. But what it did do was it gave Noble and myself the room that we needed to breathe to handle the issues that were still occurring. So the recurring stomach issues that she had were no longer there. And that gave me room to work on the itchiness that she had. And I realized only earlier this year that her itchiness was being caused by an internal chronic yeast infection that was actually presenting externally but was occurring internally. But again, I had the time now to sit here and diagnose these issues and really work with them by putting her on elimination diets and figuring out exactly what she needed to resolve these issues. Without a fresh food diet, I don't think I would have had the patience or the time to manage that. Nowadays, Noble is better than ever. She is thriving. She no longer has stomach issues. Her coat is shiny, it's slick, it's smooth. Her teeth are pearly white from chomping down on raw meaty bones that I throw in her bowl. Her breath no longer smells. Her bowel movements are absolutely perfect. These are the beneficial consequences of feeding your dog a raw food diet. I really can't emphasize enough to people nowadays that feeding your dog a species appropriate diet is something that will permanently change their lives for the better, and it'll change yours as well. You will spend less money on vet bills. You'll spend less money worrying about these random issues that your dog is having that are popping up, like recurring itchiness, chronic ear infections. All these issues that people have for their dogs can be alleviated by natural nutrition. Well, hey guys, that's my story. If you stuck around, thank you very much. Thanks for hearing me out. And of course, I would love to give a massive thank you to Bones & Co. Not only for having me on here, but also for putting up the research that they have on their website and for creating these products that really help our dogs thrive and live their best lives. Thank you again, guys. My name is Kyle from Raw Canine Experiment. Take care.